The Zorathians were a ruthless alien race. They had conquered countless planets across the galaxy, crushing every species that dared to challenge them. Their technology was advanced, and their soldiers were unmatched in battle. They believed they were the strongest beings in the universe, and nothing could stand in their way. But then they heard about Earth. At first, the Zorathians dismissed Earth as just another weak, primitive planet. But as they studied it closer, they realized something alarming. Humanity was growing stronger every day. Their technology was advancing at a rapid pace, and their influence in the galaxy was beginning to spread. If left unchecked, Earth could become a serious threat to the Zorathians' reign. They could not let that happen. The Zorathian leaders met in a dark room, their faces lit only by the cold, glowing lights of a holographic map. Their commander, Zarnak, stood at the head of the table, his tall, armored form casting a long shadow across the floor. "Earth must be destroyed," Zarnak said, his voice cold and emotionless. "We cannot allow this species to grow any stronger." The others nodded in agreement. They had already taken down countless worlds, and Earth would be no different. But Zarnak knew that brute force wouldn't be enough. Earth's people were resourceful, and they had something the Zorathians didn't understand: courage. A courage that could make them dangerous. "Send our apex predators," Zarnak ordered. The apex predators were the Zorathians' most deadly weapons. These creatures had been genetically engineered to be the perfect killing machines. Their strength was unmatched, and their hunting instincts were flawless. They had never failed a mission. The apex predators were sent to destroy everything in their path, destroying cities, breaking armies, and leaving nothing but fear in their wake. As the command was given, the apex predators were deployed. They were sent to Earth, arriving in the dead of night, when the planet was at its most vulnerable. The creatures were massive. Some stood over 20 feet tall, with sharp claws, teeth like knives, and scales that shimmered in the moonlight. Their eyes glowed with a red intensity, and their growls sent chills down the spines of anyone who heard them. They were designed to be the ultimate predators, fast, smart, and nearly impossible to kill. The creatures arrived on Earth with terrifying speed. Cities were quickly overrun, their defenses useless against the powerful beasts. Panic spread across the planet. Governments scrambled to organize a defense, but no one was prepared for the kind of destruction the apex predators were capable of. Buildings crumbled, and the ground shook as the predators tore through everything in their path. On the ground, soldiers and civilians tried to fight back, but it was hopeless. The predators were too strong. Weapons fired, tanks rolled out, but nothing worked. The creatures were like shadows in the night, appearing and disappearing with terrifying speed, always one step ahead. Their movements were quick and unpredictable, and their attacks were precise and deadly. As the chaos spread, a small group of humans began to gather. They were scientists, animal trainers, and military experts. They had been studying the predators since their arrival, trying to understand how they worked. They were shocked by what they saw. The predators were more than just mindless beasts. They were intelligent, with complex behaviors that suggested a level of thought and understanding that the humans hadn't expected. "We need to understand them," said Dr. Maya Reynolds, a leading scientist in the group. "If we can figure out how they think, maybe we can find a way to stop them." But it wasn't just stopping them that concerned the group. There was another, more daring thought on their minds. Could these creatures be tamed? Could they be controlled? The idea seemed impossible at first, but the more they observed, the more they realized that the predators were not the monsters they seemed to be. They had instincts, yes, but they also had the ability to learn, adapt, and even form bonds. The humans couldn't deny it. The predators were smart, but there was no time to waste. Cities were falling, and the world was in chaos. The predators had been unleashed, and Earth was fighting for survival. The humans knew that they had to act quickly. They needed to find a way to stop the creatures before it was too late. But could they tame such dangerous beasts? Could they turn their deadliest enemies into allies? As the Zorathians watched from afar, their ships hovering above Earth, they thought their mission was almost complete. They had sent the apex predators to destroy the planet, and soon it would be done. But they underestimated one thing: humanity's ability to survive, adapt, and fight back. The true battle for Earth had only just begun. The night was quiet. The stars shined down on Earth like tiny diamonds, but that peaceful scene didn't last long. Suddenly, there was a loud roar that shook the ground. The apex predators had arrived. The creatures were massive, towering over the tallest buildings. Their scales glowed with a dark, menacing shine as they moved through the cities. Their eyes, bright red like fire, scanned their surroundings. It was clear that these were no ordinary animals. They were sent to destroy, and nothing would stand in their way. The first city to fall was New York. The predators had arrived without warning. At first, people didn't know what was happening. A few buildings shook as the ground rumbled. Then the roar echoed through the streets. It was so loud that it felt like the earth itself was shaking. People ran, screaming, not knowing where to go or what to do. Some tried to fight back, but nothing worked. The monsters were too strong. The predators moved quickly, their huge bodies tearing through anything in their path. Soldiers fired their weapons, but the bullets barely slowed them down. Tanks rolled forward, but the creatures smashed them to pieces with their powerful claws. The streets were filled with dust, debris, and the sound of chaos. The predators roared as they tore apart everything they could find. Buildings crumbled, cars exploded, and the once bustling city was now nothing more than a battlefield. Meanwhile, across the planet, the same thing was happening. In every major city, the predators were unleashed. London, Paris, Tokyo, no place was safe. The creatures didn't just destroy buildings. They hunted down humans, their glowing eyes searching for the scent of prey. In a matter of hours, the entire planet was plunged into panic. In the heart of the chaos, a small group of humans were trying to make sense of it all. They were scientists, military leaders, and animal trainers, working together in a secret underground facility. They had been studying the apex predators from the moment they arrived, trying to understand them. They knew that the predators were more than just mindless killing machines. They were smart, powerful, and calculated. "We have to do something," said Dr. Maya Reynolds, the lead scientist. "We can't just let them destroy everything." Her team had been watching the predators carefully, studying their movements, their behavior. They had learned that the creatures were not random in their attacks. There was a pattern. The monsters seemed to focus on the most populated areas first, aiming to destroy as many humans as possible. It was a strategy, not just a mindless attack. "They're not just attacking," said Colonel James Ford, a military expert on the team. "They're hunting us. They know exactly where to go." The group was horrified, but also intrigued. Could they figure out how to stop these creatures? Or better yet, could they find a way to control them? As impossible as it seemed, they had to try. The fate of the entire planet depended on it. Outside, the world was falling apart. People had begun to flee to the countryside, away from the cities, hoping to escape the monsters. But the predators weren't just limited to the cities. They were everywhere, and there was no way to hide from them. In the midst of the destruction, a new reality began to settle in. The predators were not just monsters. They were a force of nature, unstoppable and terrifying. Humanity was helpless. There was no way to fight back, or at least that's what everyone thought. The humans in the underground facility worked around the clock. They studied the predators' movements, their habits, and their behavior. Slowly, they began to uncover a strange truth. The creatures weren't as mindless as everyone believed. They were highly intelligent, capable of learning, and even adapting to their surroundings. If humans could somehow understand them, there might be a way to stop the destruction. "We need to get close to them," Dr. Reynolds said. "We need to understand them from the inside." But that wasn't going to be easy. The predators were dangerous, and getting close to them meant risking everything. Yet the team knew they had no other choice. They had to try. As the days passed, the destruction continued. The predators tore through cities, leaving nothing but ruin behind. It felt like the end of the world. But deep down, the humans knew that they couldn't give up. They still had hope. The idea of taming the apex predators, of using their intelligence against them, seemed like a long shot. But the humans had one thing the predators didn't: the will to survive. And that was something the monsters didn't understand. The countdown had begun. Humanity had no more time to waste. It was time to take action, to do what no one else thought was possible. The creatures were hunting, but soon, humanity would show them that they were not as helpless as they seemed. The chaos of the past few days had shaken the world to its core. Cities lay in ruins, and millions of people were running for their lives. The apex predators, sent to Earth by the Zorathians, seemed unstoppable. But in the midst of the destruction, a small group of humans were working hard in secret, trying to find a way to stop the terror. Dr. Maya Reynolds and her team had been studying the creatures since the first attack. They knew that they were dealing with something much more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The monsters were not just mindless killers. They were intelligent. And if humanity had any hope of surviving, they needed to understand them. "We need to get close," Dr. Reynolds said, looking at the team gathered around the table. "We can't just fight them with guns and bombs. We need to learn what makes them tick." Colonel James Ford, a seasoned military leader, nodded in agreement. "I agree. But getting close to those things, it's risky. We don't know what they'll do if they feel threatened." "We don't have a choice," Maya replied. "The world is falling apart. We need to try something different. If we can figure out how to understand them, maybe we can control them." The team spent the next few days analyzing the predators. They studied the patterns in their attacks, their behavior, and even their sounds. They had learned that the creatures didn't attack randomly. They had a purpose. They seemed to target the most populated areas first, but they didn't kill everything in their path. Instead, they destroyed buildings, disrupted power, and caused as much chaos as possible. It was a strange method, almost like they were trying to send a message. "We need to find a way to communicate," Maya said one evening, staring at the data on the screen. "These creatures are smart. They're not just hunting, they're thinking. They must have some way of communicating with each other." Her words sparked a new idea in Colonel Ford's mind. "What if we try to communicate with them? Maybe there's a way to reach them. Maybe they'll understand us." The idea seemed crazy, but it was the only hope they had left. For days, the team worked on a plan to communicate with the predators. They used technology to study their sounds, hoping to decode the patterns. They also looked at the creatures' body language, trying to understand their signals. It was slow, but over time, they started to make progress. One thing became clear: the predators weren't acting out of pure violence. They were hunting, but they also seemed to be following some sort of order. There was a method to their madness. They weren't just killing. They were on a mission. But what was the mission? And who were they hunting for? Maya and the team realized that if they could figure out the creature's social structure, they might be able to communicate with them. Maybe the predators had leaders, or maybe they worked in packs. If they could understand their hierarchy, they could figure out how to reach them. "We need to get inside their territory," Maya said. "We need to see how they live, how they communicate with each other. It's the only way to understand them." The team began preparing for a dangerous mission. They would need to get close to the apex predators, observe their behavior, and learn as much as they could. But the risks were enormous. The creatures were dangerous, and no one knew what would happen if they got too close. "We're not sending soldiers in to fight," Colonel Ford said. "We're sending in experts, scientists, and animal trainers. We're going to try to communicate, not fight." Maya agreed. If we approach them with respect and try to understand their world, Maybe we can learn something that will give us the upper hand. The plan was risky, but the team knew that it was their only chance. They spent the next few days preparing, gathering equipment, and getting ready for the mission. They studied everything they could about the predators, their movements, their hunting patterns, and their behavior. The day of the mission arrived. The team suited up, knowing that this would be their most dangerous task yet. They had no idea what they would find when they got close to the creatures. Would the predators attack on sight, or could they actually communicate? As the team approached one of the creatures' nests, they were careful to stay hidden. They watched from a distance, taking note of every detail. The predators were hunting in packs, moving with incredible speed and coordination. But they weren't just killing. They were protecting their territory. "This is it," Maya whispered, watching the creatures closely. "We're getting closer." The team moved slowly, taking every step with caution. They knew that one wrong move could lead to disaster, but they had no choice. They had to understand these creatures if they wanted to survive. As the hours passed, the team gathered more and more information. They learned that the predators had a strict social structure, with a leader who seemed to command the pack. They also discovered that the creatures communicated with each other using body language and sounds. For the first time, Maya and the team began to feel a glimmer of hope. The predators weren't just monsters. They were intelligent beings, and if they could figure out how to communicate with them, they might be able to stop the destruction. Days had passed since Maya and her team began their mission to understand the apex predators. They had gathered valuable information about the creatures' behavior and communication. But the more they learned, the more they realized how dangerous their task was. These monsters were not just wild animals. They were a powerful, intelligent force. And their mission on Earth was not one of mindless destruction. The question remained, what were they truly after? Maya sat at a table in the underground facility, surrounded by papers and data screens. The weight of the task ahead of them was heavy. They had gotten close to the predators, watched them hunt, and even observed their social structure. But they still had no answers to the most important question. Why Earth? Why now? "We need to understand their mission," Maya said, her voice tired but determined. "They're not just attacking. There's a bigger purpose behind all of this. We need to figure it out." Colonel James Ford stood beside her, staring at the screen. "I agree, but how? We're running out of time. Every day they destroy more. If we can't figure this out soon, it may be too late." Maya rubbed her temples. It felt like they were getting closer to the truth, but every step they took only seemed to lead to more questions. They had seen the predators follow a strange pattern. But what was the pattern leading to? "We have to go back to their nests," Maya said suddenly, her voice rising with determination. "We've learned that they have a leader. Maybe if we can get close enough to the leader, we can finally understand their mission." The team exchanged nervous glances. They had already risked so much, but Maya's plan was their best shot at stopping the predators. "I'll lead the team," Colonel Ford said, his voice calm but serious. "But this time, we go in prepared. We've studied them enough. It's time to take the next step." The plan was set. The team would venture into the heart of the predators' territory once more, this time aiming to get close to their leader. They knew the dangers, but they also knew that this was the turning point. If they could understand the leader, they might be able to stop the chaos. As night fell, the team moved out. They wore special gear designed to protect them from the predators' claws and bites. It was a risky mission, but they were ready. The world depended on them. They traveled quietly through the dense forest, the sounds of the predators' roars echoing in the distance. The creatures were hunting again, and the team could hear the powerful crashes as buildings fell to the ground miles away. Each roar sent a chill down their spines. They had no idea what they were about to face. After hours of careful movement, they reached the predator's nest. It was a massive, dark area, the ground littered with broken trees and rocks. The air was thick with tension. The team huddled together, scanning the area for any sign of the creatures. They had to be careful. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet trembled. The creatures were nearby. The team held their breath, waiting for the predators to pass. They didn't have much time. Through the trees, they saw movement. The leader of the pack appeared, a massive creature with dark scales and glowing red eyes. It was much larger than the others, its body rippling with strength. The leader walked with purpose, its eyes scanning the area like it was searching for something. Maya and the team watched in awe. This was the creature they had been studying, the one who controlled the others. If they could understand it, they might be able to stop the attacks. "We need to get closer," Maya whispered. "Stay low and move quietly." They moved carefully, staying hidden in the shadows. As they got closer to the leader, they noticed something strange. The creature wasn't attacking or hunting. Instead, it seemed to be guarding something. It was focused, its eyes constantly shifting from side to side, like it was protecting something important. Maya felt a rush of excitement. "This is it. We're close. We need to figure out what it's protecting." But before they could move any closer, something unexpected happened. The leader turned and faced them. Its red eyes locked onto Maya's, and for a brief moment, everything stood still. The creature's gaze was intense, as if it was studying them, trying to understand who they were. Maya froze. It was as if the creature could sense their presence, like it knew they were there. She could feel her heart racing, but she didn't back down. This was the moment they had been waiting for. She had to stay calm. To her surprise, the leader didn't attack. Instead, it let out a low growl and turned its attention back to what it had been guarding. The team slowly approached, staying out of sight, but now they knew that the predator wasn't just a killer. It was something more. The leader was protecting something, or someone. "Look," Colonel Ford whispered, pointing to a hidden area under the leader's watch. There, tucked away in the shadows, was something they hadn't expected to see. A group of smaller creatures, ones that were far less dangerous than the apex predators. They looked injured, weak, and defenseless. The leader wasn't just hunting, it was guarding its pack. It was protecting those who needed help. Maya's heart raced as the realization hit her. The predators were not here to destroy everything. They were here to survive, and they would stop at nothing to protect their own. The team had just made a shocking discovery. The apex predators, fierce and seemingly unstoppable, weren't here to destroy Earth. They were here to protect something or someone. Maya and Colonel Ford couldn't believe what they had seen. But the truth was now clear. The creatures were guarding the injured, weaker beings of their own kind. They weren't mindless killers. They were trying to survive, and the humans had misunderstood their mission. Now, the team had to deal with a new reality. The predators weren't enemies. They were protectors. But they still had to figure out who sent them and why Earth had become their battleground. Back at the underground facility, Maya gathered her team. The tension was thick in the air. No one spoke, but everyone knew what was coming. The predators were far more complex than they had ever imagined. The question wasn't just about stopping them anymore. It was about understanding them. Why had the Zorathians sent these creatures to Earth? "We've learned a lot about the predators," Maya began, her voice steady but filled with uncertainty. "They're not here to destroy Earth. They're here to protect something, and it looks like they were sent by the Zorathians." The room went silent. The name Zorathians sent a chill down everyone's spine. The Zorathians were one of the most advanced and dangerous alien species in the galaxy. Known for their cruelty and strength, they were feared by many. Their empire had crushed countless civilizations, and now they were using Earth as their latest target. Colonel Ford looked grim. The Zorathians, why would they send these creatures to protect Earth? It doesn't make sense. Everything we've seen from the Zorathians says they destroy, not protect. Maya nodded. "I don't know yet, but we have to find out. The Zorathians must have a plan, And if we don't understand it soon, we won't be ready for what's coming. The team worked day and night to gather more information. They analyzed everything they had learned about the apex predators, the Zorathians' history, and the strange behavior of the creatures. They still didn't have answers, but they were getting closer. As the days passed, something unexpected happened. The apex predators began to move differently. They were no longer just attacking or guarding. They seemed to be communicating with each other more often, their movements more coordinated than ever. It was as if they were preparing for something bigger. "We need to know what they're planning," Maya said one morning. "They're up to something, and it's not just about protecting their kind anymore. It's something bigger." Colonel Ford agreed. "We need to get closer to the Zorathians. If we can understand their plan, we might be able to stop it before it's too late." But getting close to the Zorathians was no easy task. They were known to be incredibly powerful, and their technology was beyond anything humanity had ever seen. The team would need to be careful. If they made a mistake, it could be the end. Maya and Ford met with the team to discuss their next steps. They knew the risks, but they also knew that this was their only chance to stop the Zorathians' plan. They needed to find a way to make contact with the alien empire and learn their intentions before it was too late. "We'll need to infiltrate their communication network," Maya said. "We have to get inside their system and gather information. If we can't stop them from the outside, maybe we can learn what they're planning from within." The plan was risky, but it was their best option. The team worked quickly to prepare for the mission, using everything they had learned about the Zorathians' technology and tactics. They gathered equipment, studied the enemy's communications, and planned their approach. But as they were finalizing their plan, they received an unexpected message. It was from the Zorathians themselves. The message appeared on every screen in the facility. It was simple, but the words sent a shock through everyone present. "We know what you've discovered. You are too late. The predators are our last warning. Prepare yourselves for the consequences." Maya's heart sank. The Zorathians knew they were getting closer to the truth, and now they were threatening to wipe them out. "What do we do now?" Colonel Ford asked, his voice tight with tension. Maya took a deep breath. "We have to move fast. The Zorathians are coming. We can't wait for them to strike first. We need to take action now." The team sprang into action, preparing for the worst. They knew the Zorathians wouldn't back down. But now it was clear they had to fight back, not just to protect Earth, but to protect their very survival. As the team made their final preparations, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that the Zorathians were not just a threat to Earth. They were a threat to the entire galaxy. If they succeeded in their mission, nothing would be safe. "Get ready," Maya said, her voice determined. "This isn't just a battle for Earth anymore. It's a battle for the future of the galaxy." The tension in the underground facility was unbearable. Maya, Colonel Ford, and their team stood in front of the large monitor, eyes glued to the screen. The message from the Zorathians had left them with little time. The countdown had already begun. The Zorathians were preparing to launch an attack that would destroy everything they had fought for. Maya clenched her fists. They had no choice now. They had to fight back, or Earth would be lost forever. There was no more time for hesitation. "We know they're coming," Maya said, her voice firm. "We need to stop them before they launch their attack." Colonel Ford nodded. "We've prepared for this. We know where their fleet is, and we have a plan. But it's risky. We don't have much time." The team had spent the last few days gathering intelligence, learning about the Zorathian fleet's location and weaknesses. They had a rough plan, but no one knew if it would work. The Zorathians were incredibly powerful, and their ships were far more advanced than anything humanity had ever seen. Maya turned to the rest of the team. "We've trained for this moment. We've learned everything we can. Now it's time to put it all into action. We need to stop them before they destroy Earth. No one else is coming to help us. It's up to us." The team nodded, determination in their eyes. They knew the risks. They knew that this mission might be their last. but they were ready to do whatever it took to save their planet. The plan was simple but dangerous. They would infiltrate the Zorathian fleet, using their knowledge of the enemy's technology to disable the ships from the inside. It was their only chance. If they failed, Earth would fall. As the team boarded their transport ship, the weight of the mission sank in. The air was thick with tension. This wasn't just another mission. This was the final battle. If they succeeded, they would stop the Zorathians and save their world. But if they failed, Earth would be lost, and the galaxy would fall into chaos. "We're almost there," Maya said as she glanced at the readout on the console. The transport ship was closing in on the Zorathian fleet. "Get ready. This is it." The ship began to shake as it entered the Zorathian fleet's defense zone. The enemy's ships were massive, their weapons bristling with power. It was a sight that would have struck fear into anyone else, but Maya and her team were determined. They had come too far to back down now. "We're going in," Colonel Ford said, his voice calm but full of urgency. "Prepare to board." The team took their positions, strapping on their gear and checking their weapons. It was now or never. They had to infiltrate the Zorathian flagship and disable its systems. The fate of Earth rested on their shoulders. As they landed on the enemy ship, the team moved quickly, using the shadows to stay hidden. The Zorathians were strong, but they weren't invincible. Maya knew their weakness. They could be defeated if they struck at the right moment. "We've made it inside," Maya whispered into her comms. "Stay sharp. We don't have much time." They moved through the dark corridors of the Zorathian flagship, their boots echoing in the silence. The ship's interior was cold and metallic, its halls filled with strange alien technology. Every corner felt like a trap, but they pressed on, determined to reach their objective. Suddenly, they came to a large control room. Through the glass, they could see the Zorathian leader standing at the center, flanked by his officers. Maya's heart raced. This was the moment they had been waiting for. They had to disable the ship's core systems, and they needed to do it now. "We have to get to the control center," Colonel Ford said, his voice low. "Once we disable the core systems, the fleet will be powerless." Maya nodded. "Let's move." The team broke into action, quickly taking down the Zorathian guards who were stationed in the control room. The enemy soldiers fought fiercely, but Maya's team was faster and more determined. The guards fell one by one, and soon the control room was clear. "Core systems are ahead," Maya said, glancing at the control panel. "We have to reach them." They rushed to the main console, typing in the codes they had stolen from the Zorathian communications network. The countdown was still ticking. They had to act fast. As Maya's fingers flew over the keys, the ship's alarms began to blare. The Zorathian leader had discovered their presence. His voice boomed over the intercom. "You cannot win. The Zorathians are unstoppable." Maya didn't waste time. She pressed the final command, and the core systems began to shut down. The lights in the control room flickered, and the ship's engines began to power down. "We did it," Maya said, her voice filled with relief. "The fleet is disabled." But the battle wasn't over. The Zorathians would retaliate. They had to escape before the enemy could regroup. "Let's get out of here," Colonel Ford ordered. The team ran through the corridors, heading for their transport ship. The Zorathians' counterattack was already beginning. The ship was shaking, and explosions echoed through the halls. But Maya and her team made it to their ship just in time. As they took off, they could see the Zorathian fleet falling apart in the distance. Earth had been saved. The battle was over, and Earth was safe. The Zorathian fleet had been disabled. Their plan to destroy the planet had failed, and humanity had won a hard-fought victory. But as Maya and her team stood on the surface of Earth, they knew the fight wasn't truly over. They had stopped the Zorathians, but the galaxy was still a dangerous place. New challenges were on the horizon, and humanity's place in the universe was still uncertain. Maya took a deep breath, looking up at the sky. The world around her was quiet now, But she couldn't shake the feeling that things had changed forever. The victory over the Zorathians was important, but it was just the beginning of a new chapter for Earth and for humanity. "We did it," Colonel Ford said, his voice filled with pride. "Earth is safe. We stopped them." Maya nodded, but her mind was already moving forward. "Yes, we did. But this is only the start. The Zorathians aren't the only threat out there. There are other empires, other species that won't hesitate to try and conquer us. We need to prepare for what's coming." Ford looked at her, understanding in his eyes. "I know, but we've proven something. We've shown the galaxy that we're not weak. We can fight, and we can win." Maya turned to face her team, who had gathered around her. They had worked together, fought together, and now they stood united in their victory. It was a moment of triumph, but Maya knew that their work was far from finished. They had to rebuild, to strengthen Earth, and to prepare for whatever came next. "We've done something incredible," she said, "but we have to remember that our greatest strength is our unity. We've shown that when we work together, we can defeat even the strongest enemies." The team nodded, their faces filled with determination. They had seen the power of the Zorathians firsthand, and they knew how dangerous the galaxy could be. But now, they also knew the power of humanity. They had stood up to the greatest threat the universe had ever seen and won. And that made them stronger. As the days passed, Maya and her team began the long process of rebuilding. They worked with scientists, engineers, and diplomats to strengthen Earth's defenses and prepare for the future. The world had changed in ways they couldn't yet fully understand, but one thing was clear. Humanity was no longer just a small, isolated species on a distant planet. They were part of something bigger, something far more dangerous and complex. In the months that followed, Earth's leaders began to work together with the newly formed Human Galactic Council. The council was a group of representatives from different human nations, each with one goal in mind: to ensure that humanity's voice was heard in the galaxy. Maya was chosen to be a key member of this council, a leader who had proven herself in the face of unimaginable odds. As the council formed, Maya found herself in meetings with representatives from other species, some friendly and some not. The galaxy was filled with all kinds of beings, from peaceful traders to ruthless warlords. Earth was a small player in this vast galaxy, but they had made their mark. The Zorathians were just one example of what lay out there. And now, humanity was ready to face whatever came next. One day, as Maya sat in a meeting with the council, she found herself thinking about the future. The Zorathians had been defeated, but what about the next threat? What about the dangers that still lurked in the darkness of space? She couldn't help but smile. Whatever came next, humanity was ready. They had proven that they could stand up to any threat, no matter how big or powerful. The Zorathians had underestimated them, but now, everyone in the galaxy knew the truth. Humans were not to be ignored. As the meeting ended, Maya stood up and walked out into the hallway. She looked out the window, watching as the stars twinkled in the distance. The galaxy was still vast and mysterious, but for the first time, it felt like Earth had a place in it. Humanity was no longer just a species on the edge of the universe. They were a force to be reckoned with. "We've come a long way," Maya whispered to herself, "and we're just getting started." She smiled, feeling a sense of hope and pride fill her. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, humanity had a chance to shape it. With their strength, their unity, and their determination, there was nothing they couldn't do. And as the stars continued to shine brightly in the sky, Maya knew that the best was yet to come.